On this episode of Special Report, we stay here at the nation's commercial hub, Lagos, where the President of the Republic of Ghana, President Nana Akufo-Addo, was hosted to a lunch at the Metropolitan Club, Lagos. The conversation at that lunch, which focused on bilateral relations between Nigeria and Ghana, will be our focus. Thanks for joining us. I'm Jeffrey Uzongo. Nigeria, commonly referred to as the giant of Africa for a number of reasons, including its vast human and natural resources, influence on the West African sub-region and the continent of Africa. West Africa, the regional playground of the sub-Saharan power brokers, particularly Nigeria and Ghana, are arguably the most dominant economies in the area. This is due in large part to the private sector participation between both countries in financial services, oil and gas, consumer goods, construction and real estate, amongst others. All this to the extent that Nigeria is said to have the second largest business portfolio in Ghana, second only to China, and Ghana has considerable number of businesses in Nigeria. Now, that relationship has been ambivalent over the decades, the lows due majorly to diplomatic issues and trade disputes, such as the expulsion of undocumented migrants from Nigeria in 1983 by President Shehu Shagari, of which Ghanaians, who were the highest number of an estimated 2 million people, were affected, felt slighted. The traveling bag with tartan pattern, called Ghana Must Go, became popular, but infamously so, because of that incident. But a similar incident that occurred in 1969 with Ghana expelling Nigerians. The storm was weathered but still leaves a rivalry between both nations. That has not stopped the commerce, but the current challenge is a law in Ghana that forbids foreigners from engaging in retail trade in Ghana. Nigerians are of course majorly affected. But the Minister of Trade of Ghana, Mr. Alan Kere-Martin, and his counterpart in Nigeria, Mr. Niyi Adebayo, oversee the respective portfolios to improve trade between the twain. Part of improving those relations involves private sector participation, of which many organizations in both countries play a significant role, and in some cases, even clubs. At the founding of the club in 1959, early members of the Metropolitan Club were also members of some existing clubs, such as the Lagos Lawn Tennis Club, the Ikoyi Club 1938, and the Yoruba Tennis Club. The founding fathers were gentlemen, some of whom had spent their formative years in the United Kingdom and had attended very good public schools and higher institutions with apparent exposure to the British culture. This common interest brought together the elite gentlemen to form what is now known as the Metropolitan Club. The chief promoter of this initiative was the late Sir Adetokunbo Ademola, who ensured that his colleagues and friends, both indigenes and foreigners, were founders of the club. Some of the memorable founders were Dr. Moses Majekodunmi, who was an eminent physician, administrator, and founder of St. Nicholas Hospital, Lagos; Chief Frederick Rotimi Williams, senior advocate of Nigeria, who was a prominent Nigerian lawyer and the first Nigerian to become a senior advocate of Nigeria. Also on the list is Chief Ezekiel Ladipo Davis. He was a leading Nigerian nationalist, founding father, lawyer, and journalist. A Nigerian ophthalmologist and politician, Sir Akufo-Addo, Sir Samuel Ayodiji Manua, was a pioneering Nigerian surgeon, Inspector General of Medical Services and former Chief Medical Advisor to the Federal Government of Nigeria. Chief Justice Atanda Fatai Williams was a Nigerian jurist and former Chief Justice of Nigeria. Yoruba Nigerian businessman and philanthropist Sir Mobolaji Bank Anthony also joined the team of builders. Chief Shafilawa Ledu, popularly known as S.L. Ledu, was a Nigerian businessman and conservationist from Ekpe, Lagos State. The list has others, which includes the founder of A.G. Leventis and Company Limited, Chief Anastasius G. Leventis. Sir Louis Nwachukwumbanefo, the first lawyer from that region of Nigeria. Chief Akintola Williams, a Nigerian accountant and the first Nigerian to qualify as a chartered accountant. Honorable Justice Idowu Taylor, Chief Justice of the Supreme Court and Chief Justice of the Federal Capital Territory of Lagos, and Chief Ayo Rosiji, a Nigerian politician who served as Minister of Health and Minister of Information. When the number of its members increased shortly after its founding, the club's premises at the Bushiri Road in Lagos became too small to accommodate them.
with the assistance of the late Prime Minister Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, who was the club's first patron. A new piece of land on Akufo-Addo Street, Victoria Island, was allotted to the club.
An organization is a sum of its parts, and a club is some of its members. In the case of the latter, it doesn't ring more true for the Metropolitan Club Lagos, who holds the president of Ghana, Nana Akufo-Addo. On this said occasion, President Nana Akufo-Addo arrives at the Metropolitan Club, received by the current president, who ushers him in for a chit-chat before the event for the day. They ascend the high table, and preliminary protocols observed. Nigeria's former Minister of Foreign Affairs, Bolaji Akinyemi, sets the tone of the occasion by highlighting Ghana's historic role on the continent.
Osajifo Kwame Nkrumah, Your Excellency, was the first African president that we will recognize and applaud here. Those who, like me, and I'm West Ambassador Fafora, I know he's around here. Oh yes, there he is. Ambassador Fafora, Ambassador Akinsa, those who were in the diplomatic service will recall that no sooner did the Ghana become independent, that the Osajifo summoned the Conference of Independent African States, and then the Conference of the African People's Conference. He lit that torch. Ghana lit that torch of African Renaissance. It wasn't Ghana Renaissance, it was African Renaissance. And Your Excellency, till today, that torch is still alight in the heart of all Africans. It was the Osajifo who prepared that tradition of Africans from the diaspora having a home in Ghana, something you, Your Excellency, have continued. We recognize what Ghana means to Africa. Even to Your Excellency, I recall your eulogy during the state funeral of J.J. Rawlings, when you revealed to the world your pet name for him, Commandant. And I laughed because I was sitting in my sitting room and I said, but that's what I call him as well, because he looked like Fidel Castro. And those were the people who are fighting the fight of African liberty.
In a similar fashion, an octogenarian and senior advocate of Nigeria, Lufemi Okunu, has fond memories of Nigeria's relationship with Ghana.
To know Ghana as the Gold Coast, and I recall in my primary school days, in the 40s, the leading role which the Gold Coast played in the 40s and 50s in liberation of Africa. Your Excellency, I recall the Big Six in Ghana's political history. The Big Six of Dr. J.B. Dankwa, Mr. Ofori-Atta, Mr. Edward Akufo-Addo, that's the president's father, Mr. Akufo-Addo, Mr. Obotsebi Lamte, and Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, who was resident, I think, in Manchester. He lived there, and the big shots lawyers, most of them, invited him to be the Secretary General of UGCC, United Gold Coast Convention. Following, I believe, riots, the riots which occurred during the demonstration, I would like to recall, by ex-servicemen union. Some lives were lost. Not many, not the scale which we do lose lives in Nigeria every day today. And these big six were arrested and detained. They were detained in Kumasi, including the president's father. They were detained for about 6 months, I think, and later released to give evidence before the Commission of Inquiry, Watson's Commission of Inquiry, appointed by the colonial government. So, our guest today was born into politics. Moving on, we have the President of Ghana as our guest this afternoon. What's the connection? Unfortunately, we couldn't look at the photographs behind the high table. I couldn't show the president the photographs, the paintings of our past presidents, led by Sir Adetokunbo Ademola, right behind you, sir. Lady Akufo-Addo, I understand, and the president's father were at Oxford together, while the Sir Adetokunbo was at Cambridge. Over time, a friendship grew up between the two families. It grew up to the extent that our president this afternoon, our guest this afternoon, in Nigeria, I think Sir Adetokunbo became his father. Abi? He knew the household. I'm sorry, Mr. President, I didn't tell you this during a little chat. I thought I should surprise you a little. He knew the corners, nooks and corners of Sir Adetokunbo's house. He was a member of that household. Incidentally, the two big shots, the two friends, Mr. Edward Akufo-Addo and Sir Adetokunbo, became Chief Justices in their respective countries.
The President of Ghana, Nana Akufo-Addo, takes the stage and speaks with passion not only of Nigeria-Ghana bilateral relations, but also the African continent and current affairs.
And I'm amazed to receive a picture of myself when I have hair. and the club's eminent founder, Sir Akufo-Addo. I came here with several members in my delegation who, like me, are always happy to come to Nigeria, a country I describe as my second home. Indeed, Ghana and Nigeria are like proverbial sisters, siblings, and sometimes it is surprising to realize that we do not have a common border. We care about each other very much, and the rivalry between us can be found on the football field. A recent example being when we qualified for the World Cup at your expense. And in the kitchen, when we decide who makes the best jollof. You and I know the answer is obvious. As the Deputy High Commissioner said, Ghanaian jollof. In colonial times, there was a lot of interaction between the civilian and military intelligentsia and elites of our two countries, especially as many of them received their higher education in the same institutions in the common imperial center of Great Britain. This is a tradition we must, in the different circumstances of the 21st century, strive to maintain. On a more personal note, I recall the famous Lagosian lawyer of yesteryear, the late Ladipo Moore, who was the best friend of my father, the late President of the Second Republic of Ghana and former Chief Justice, Edward Akufo-Addo. They met at the Inns of Court in London and became bosom friends. After they were called to the bar, they traveled by boat together back home to West Africa. The boat dropped my father off in Takoradi and Uncle Ladi in Apapa. His sister, the late Kofor Moore, married Nigeria's historic first Chief Justice of the Federation, who coincidentally led the formation of this club, the late Sir Akufo-Addo. They became the parents of Boyega Ademola, a lifelong friend from my youth and a member of this club. Again, I have two beautiful, elegant daughters from Ile Ife, who are granddaughters of the late renowned lawyer politician, Chief Remi Fani Kayode QC, and nieces of my controversial erstwhile brother-in-law, the Honorable Femi Fani Kayode. Ladies and gentlemen, when I was elected, and I recognize that it takes a Ghanaian guest to introduce the concept of ladies into the vocabulary of this club. When I was elected by my peers as chairperson of the Authority of Heads of State and Government of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, I outlined 5 immediate challenges facing West Africa, whose resolution I indicated was going to be of prime concern for me. As fate would have it, one of them, the consolidation of democratic governance in our region, has been on the front burner of my tenure as ECOWAS chair, with most of the meetings convened during my time having to deal with matters in Mali, Guinea, and Burkina Faso, which have each sadly experienced coups d'etats in the last 2 years. I want to use this opportunity to speak briefly inter alia on why it should be in our collective interest in West Africa to ensure that democracy is the preferred mode of governance, and why we should all say no to unconstitutional changes in governance. We've certainly come a long way, but we should not take it for granted that everybody has accepted democracy as the preferred mode of governance. There are those who still hanker after authoritarian personal rule, because they claim Africa is underdeveloped and democracy is cumbersome and we need to get things done in a hurry. There are those who seek shortcuts to office, to exercise power without limits. And there are those who have no respect for the free choices of our sovereign peoples because they do not accord with their so-called ideological preferences. We still have some work to do to convince such people that we are all safer and better off under democracies. We should all continue to be guided by the famous dictum of the great British wartime leader, Winston Spencer Churchill, when he said, and I quote, "Democracy is the worst form of governance, except for all the others," unquote. According to the African Center for Strategic Studies, 18 African leaders have either modified or eliminated constitutional term limits in the past 2 decades. In addition, another 8 resisted efforts to institute term limits, bringing the number of countries lacking constitutional restraints on the exercise of executive power to 26. This represents almost exactly half of the number of countries on the continent. In contrast, the same source notes that 21 countries upheld term limits and 15 now have them in their constitutions, like Nigeria and like Ghana. The average time office holders have been in power in the 21 countries that have respected term limits is 4 years. In most of the situations where incumbents have not respected term limits, they've argued that the basis for hanging on to power is in response to popular pressure by their people to remain in office, and that term limits have no meaning in poor and underdeveloped societies where uplifting citizens has to be the utmost priority. Others also believe that leaders should remain in office for as long as they continue winning elections. However, electoral processes that have been used to engender term limit extensions or removals in Africa have often been marred by allegations of widespread irregularities. Ruling parties that apply this route usually enjoy near total control of most, if not all, the levers of government and the electoral machinery. Consequently, many African peoples have paid a steep price for efforts by leaders to circumvent constitutional term limits. Upwards of 90% of the 26 countries that either lacked term limits or circumvented them have experienced varying levels of civil unrest and political instability, including coup d'etat. The reappearance of coups in Africa in all its forms and manifestations should be condemned by all, since it seriously undermines our collective bid to rid the continent of the menace of instability and unconstitutional changes in government, as currently defined by the frameworks enshrined in the Lomé Declaration, the African Charter on Democracy, Elections and Governance, and other important regional and continental instruments.
As he takes his leave, it is evident that the progress of the West African sub-region is interwoven with the partnership of the Nigerian and the Ghanaian economy, political stability, and by extension, the security of the region. And that's it on this episode of the program. Thanks for your time and, of course, your usual company. I'm Jeffrey Uzonga.